Hello? Excuse me? Hello? Sienna was getting more frustrated by the second. She had been standing in front of the bar, waving a 20 at the bartender's general direction, trying to get her to acknowledge him. She had believed that wearing a glittery halter top, a rather short leather skirt, and winged eyeliner would have made her a little more visible than she currently felt. But the bartender wasn't interested in her or her order. He looked right through her and continued staring off into space. His coworker quickly clocked Sienna and stepped in to get her order. "Yes, ma'am. What can I get for you?" he asked pleasantly, a polar opposite of the previous bartender. Sienna scowled. She wasn't used to being ignored. When she wasn't partying hard at the club with the girls, she was commanding entire office rooms as the head of marketing. Only she knew the blood, sweat, and tears she had shed as she clawed her way to the top. Many of her managers had offered her the easy way out. Being an attractive woman came with its fair share of unwanted advances and attention, but it had always been hers to turn down. To see a bartender dismiss her very existence rubbed her the wrong way. "You can get me a vodka soda," she said icily. "And while you're at it, you can tell me why your coworker doesn't seem to possess basic human decency." The bartender looked nervously from Sienna to his coworker, clearly trying to make out how much the guy had overheard their conversation. "I am taking care of your order." "But you won't take care of your problem coworker?" Sienna said, pouting. She knew when and how to put on a show. She twirled one of her brunette curls in her head and batted her eyes prettily at the bartender, making him blush furiously. Ross replied, "Ma'am, you're really putting me on the spot here, trying to be evasive. Let me just get that drink for you." "What's going on here?" The bartender who Sienna had desperately tried to get the attention of finally joined the conversation. His coworker flushed and tried to stammer an explanation. The man simply held up a hand and he stopped talking. The bartender owner said, "Ross, go see if they need help in the kitchen." Ross responded, "Yes, boss." "So, tell me," the bartender owner now sneered at Sienna, "how have I personally offended you?" Sienna answered, "You unable to possess basic human decency is what offends me," Sienna said in clipped tones. "Because, sir, I had been waving at you for quite some time to take my order." "Didn't you place your order?" "Yes, but didn't they ask you what you needed in 5 minutes of you jumping up and down and making a spectacle of yourself? Excuse me?" He smirked. He knew he had gotten under her skin. He had seen people like her enter his club all the time. They would try to get his attention, try to get him to get his guard down. Sometimes he suspected they were working with the cops, trying to find a way inside his trusted circle. He knew what his father had left him, and some days only the club seemed like a place where he could breathe easy. "How dare you suggest that I have been inappropriate?" "Didn't say that. I said spectacle," he interrupted. He was amused by her refusal to back down. Usually drunk women just left him alone after 2 half-hearted attempts. Whatever it is, that is rude. Ruder than... She tried again, but was interrupted this time by Ross. "Ma'am, I have your vodka soda here for you," he said pleasantly, placing the drink in front of her. He was, totally unaware of how heated the discussion had gotten between his patron and his boss. He cottoned onto it a second too late. "Would you like a dictionary?" His boss goaded her. He seemed to be enjoying himself. Sienna was absolutely livid. So she did the only thing her impulse told her to do. She grabbed her drink and threw it with all her might at the rude bartender. Honestly, she didn't give a damn if he was the owner of the place or not. "Maybe this will teach you that being rude to your patrons has consequences," she said nastily. She dropped another 10 right on top of her 20 and walked back to her friends. One of them had seen what she had done and nudged her in stunned silence. Did you just throw a drink at that bartender's face? She asked. Yeah, he was being a prick. He needed to be taught a lesson. Sienna said, satisfied with the turn of events, and now I am walking away because I feel I should call it a night. I don't think... Her friend started to explain, but Sienna had already started to move between the girls and bid them goodnight. As she left the bar, her friend turned to their group and asked in all seriousness, "Please tell you guys understand what our friend just did?" They shrugged. They were honestly used to Sienna being Sienna, taking things way too far, escalating matters when they needn't be. But they liked that she seemed to take herself out of the equation before the night got ruined for everyone. She was a lot of fun, but, she needed to be taken in small doses, was the general consensus about Sienna Carter. Sienna's friend, who had been the only one who really realized the gravity of the situation, glanced at the bar. She spotted the bartender staring daggers at the door from where Sienna had exited. The possessed look on his face honestly made her blood chill.
So here's the thing. Luca Vieri, the one who had been the bartender ignoring Sienna, was the newly crowned Mafia King of the Vieri family. From his childhood, he had been groomed to take over the empire one day. The one day had come far too soon, in his opinion. His father, Don Vieri, had passed away when he was merely 16 years old. Since he couldn't legally do much, he chose to rule from the shadows and let his cousin Nico run the show for him, only with his counsel. The age difference between them was only 2 years. Many people in the organization had whispered their concerns about how when the time came, Nico wouldn't step down. He would fight for the throne he had kept warm for Luca all these years. Everyone had believed Luca would take over the Vieri family as soon as he turned 18. But he surprised everyone by investing in the club and setting it up properly, and not turning his attention to his rightful throne until he was deep in his 30s. And only because Nico asked for a break from being at the front line all the time. He knew what he had signed up for the minute he decided to become the Mafia King of the Vieri family. That was the reason, even though he had noticed Sienna the minute she had walked into the club, he decided to ignore her. He had continued to watch her with a mix of curiosity and irritation. He noticed how she had handled herself from unwanted advances in the club. The woman knew she was pretty and, she played it up. She was bold, loud, and exactly the kind of trouble that he did not need. Not right now, anyway. He had focused his gaze on anyone but her when she had made her way to him. Their eyes had met for half a second, and Luca had quickly looked away. However, Sienna took that as an invitation to come bounding up to him and maybe strike up a conversation. He had done his best to ignore her. Now, as he stood there, still drenched from the drink thrown at him by the angry brunette for not giving her the time of day, he had to stop himself from smiling to himself. He had become so used to people walking on eggshells around him that it was, honestly, kind of refreshing to meet someone who treated him like, well, just human. Whoa, you look like hell. What happened? Cop or one of the Romano goons? Luca, voiceover, a mouthy brunette, actually. Got pissed off because I wouldn't serve her. She was too intoxicated to have more drinks? Luca hesitated. Yeah, he had found her absolutely intoxicating. How was he supposed to explain to his cousin that something had actually stirred in his cold, dead heart? The cousin had given up almost all of his youth holding down the kingdom that had never been promised to him in the first place. He knew Nico had put the Vieri family before his actual family. His wife had left with his daughter years ago, and Nico was trying his best to win them back. He just couldn't be selfish enough to tell him the thoughts swirling in his mind right now. Let's just say I had a very good reason to cut her off. And believe me, you would too. She was a dreadful little spitfire. Really? You seem to be quite taken with her, if you are going to keep talking about her like this. Perhaps. Nico and Luca Vieri could have easily passed off as brothers. They both had dark hair and were of the same height. But if you looked closely, you'd see the lines that had slowly crept up on Nico's face. Managing the family business had come with its fair share of toll. Behind his kindly blue eyes was a dullness. He wanted to feel something again, but he was convinced that unless he had his daughter with him, he would just keep feeling empty. Luca, on the other hand, seemed to have been kissed by the fountain of youth. He still looked young for his age, and his emerald green eyes always sparkled with hope. Some days he would wake up resenting his legacy. Other days he would want to sleep in, just so he could stay longer in the land of dreams, where he did not have a care in the world. Are you going to change out of those wet clothes? Nah, what's a little vodka sod going to do anyway? It'll evaporate, eventually. Well, you seem to have this all figured out. Should we talk about a serious concern that's come up? What serious concerns? What happened? Do you need help? I am fine, Luca, but it's far graver matter than a mouthy brunette throwing her drink at you. To be fair, I did egg her on. Huh? I can honestly say I have known you all my life and I do not understand you. You don't need to understand me, you just need to trust me. They looked at each other and laughed, their boyish vows to each other echoing in the wind. Through everything, they had held that vow sacred to their hearts. During Nico's reign, whenever Luca would tell him that he couldn't understand something, this was what he would tell him. It was Luca's pure wit and cleverness that had made the Vieri family thrive when Don Vieri had died unexpectedly. The police had circled around them like a hawk, hoping to catch a break in their case if someone slipped up during their moment of vulnerability. But everyone had pledged their loyalty to Nico, and he in turn ensured everyone was untouchable in their Vieri kingdom. However, he did enforce a code that everyone had to follow. Anyone found violating the code was immediately thrown out of the kingdom. Shall we go into your office and talk about the concern then? Lead the way.
Well, Luca said, turning to his cousin, we are in my office now. What did you want to tell me that's so urgent? Luca, you know I would never betray you, right? No matter how insignificant it might seem. I really hope you know that, Nico asked urgently. I need you to tell me that you understand that. Of course I do, Luca said. He was taken aback that they were even having such a conversation. He trusted Nico with life. It was the only reason he had decided to take a step back and let Nico rule the Vieri family as long as he did. He would have happily played second fiddle to Nico all his life if Nico had not decided to take an early retirement and try to salvage what was left of his family. Nico, what is going on with you? He pressed urgently. You know you can tell me anything, right? I just had a very interesting conversation with our accountant today. I could tell right off the bat something was off. And with some persuasion, we found out that someone has been embezzling money from our funds for months now. Nico said the words quickly, as though saying the words first wouldn't make Luca react the way he did. He had tried to be a just and fair leader, but what was he going to do when someone forced his hand? He had to show them that indiscretions had consequences. While he tried to be just, he was running a business and not a charity. Do you know who has been stealing from us for months, Nico? He asked, his voice steady. Someone had committed a crime. He was going to ensure the person got their just desserts. Yes, Nico said firmly. It's the guy we had hired at the beginning of last year, Luca. He was going to help us keep our businesses legit and clean. Ethan Carter. Good, Luca said softly. And have we sent someone to summon him to our estate? Of course, Nico said at once. It wasn't his first rodeo. He had been the one who had been dealing with such misdemeanors and doling out punishments until even a few weeks ago. He knew what the protocol was when someone in the business was caught stealing from the same place that paid their salaries. He caught wind of what we were doing, Luca, and he fled. We have been tracking down his next of kin. You know we don't let such actions slide. That's not the Vieri way, Luca said bitterly. He was echoing what his father used to say years ago, whenever Luca would ask his father to stop wailing on his men, whenever he would catch them in the slightest indiscretions. He would tell his father to be lenient, to understand why his men acted the way they did. This was his chance to course correct, to be a different leader than his father. Hiring Ethan Carter had been a step in that direction. He wanted to change how his father did business. He wanted to actually change the way his world worked. Ethan Carter was supposed to make this better. He was supposed to figure out how to turn this business legitimate and help them keep their noses clean. And here he had completely screwed them over. Don't worry, Luca, Nico assured him. We are doing everything in our power to make sure we have his next of kin in the Vieri estate by daybreak. Luca nodded curtly. He didn't know what he would do when he came face to face with Ethan Carter's next of kin. But right now, all he cared about was them being found. It was a piercing scream that made Luca wake up with a jerk and almost tumble out of bed. He opened his eyes wearily. The sunlight was faint outside his window. As the room slowly swam into his view, he began to register the commotion that was coming from downstairs. An unmistakable female voice was yelling loudly. "Leave me alone, you goddamn vultures," the female voice yelled. "I am telling you I haven't seen or heard from my brother in months. Why the hell am I here?" One of Luca's men replied just as loudly. "This would be a lot easier if you just shut up. Please don't make me gag you, La Signora. I don't like doing that to our guests." "Guests?" The woman continued in the same tone. "You kidnapped me from my home? How did you even get in? I thought my security was top level." The man answered, "You'd be surprised how easy it is to enter spaces when you have friends in high places." By now, Luca had thrown a t-shirt over his head and was marching downstairs barefoot in his sweatpants. He had to know what was going on in his estate. Nico no longer lived in the estate. Part of trying to show his wife and child he was making a real effort to bow out of the family business was finding a place of his own, far from the Vieri business after hours. During times like this, Luca missed him dearly. His cousin had been an odd mix of a father and brother for him. He had sheltered Luca in a way no one had. He felt quite lost without him. He rounded the corner and stopped dead in his tracks as the woman tossed her hair, and he recognized her as the hair flew back, revealing her face. Her hands and feet were bound with rope, and the guard stood next to her. He was on high alert to ensure she didn't try to run away from the place the first chance she got. "You!" he said in disbelief. "You!" she shrieked, recognizing him as well. "Is this your idea of a sick joke?" "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Really? You want to play dumb with me?" "Luca," his men interrupted before Sienna could finish her rant. "This is Sienna Carter. She's Ethan Carter's sister. We were ordered to pick up his next of kin." "Wait," Sienna said, her eyes going wide. She looked wildly from the man holding her to the guy in front of her, the one who had not given her the time of day in the club. "How do you know my brother? Is he in trouble? Why am I here?" Luca sighed. This was a problem he was seriously not anticipating. "If I ask my men to untie you, will you behave yourself and come have breakfast with me?" Sienna opened her mouth furiously, probably to argue or to insult him. But Luca never found out because he added, "I am quite happy to have a conversation with you while you remain all tied up. But something tells me you'd rather be comfortable, especially since you might be here a while. Think long and hard before you answer. She closed her mouth and nodded her consent. Luca gestured for the guard to untie her and bring her to the dining room. The guard saw her face calculate how long she would have if she tried to make a run for it the moment he untied her. "Don't," he said harshly. "You won't last even 5 minutes. Your better chances of survival is joining him and figuring out a middle ground. He is all about fairness. So if he feels you're forcing his hand, he won't hesitate to stop considering a deal." "What deal?" Sienna asked angrily. "Will someone tell me why I am here in the first place?" "Join him for breakfast, La Signora," the man advised, "and perhaps you'll get out of this alive."